Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Career Lab. Career Lab is the podcast where we focus on all things career. People coming into careers, learning how to develop their careers, changing careers, and anything that has to do with career development, career change, career maturation, and especially in today's world, how to manage your career. So we're happy to be back for another episode. And of course, sitting next to me virtually is one of my favorite people in the world, America's career coach and the star of the show, Julie LaCroix. Hello, Julie.
Well, good morning, Joel. It's always wonderful to be working with you.
It's great to see you and always great to have the show with you. And I'm interested to see what we can both add to the very interesting show we have this morning. What have you been up to?
Well, I'm living full-time in Arizona, so it's a little bit toasty this time of year, but unlike most people, I love an Arizona summer. So when I'm not podcasting or doing career counseling, I'm pretty much floating in my pool.
Wow. Okay.
That's my professional development plan.
And I've seen your pool and it looks beautiful. So I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're in Arizona. I'm glad you're enjoying an Arizona summer. On my end, I just got back from Europe. From France and Italy. And I can tell you that things in Europe are good, really
I'll
good.
Bet.
Really good. So
yeah,
we're doing well going to Europe. Well, okay, let's get on with the show. I'm glad we're both here. Today we have a special guest.
We do.
And we're going to bring him in just a minute, and Julie and I will get a chance to meet with him. This is a young man whose name is Jarvis Leverson, and he's a kind of motivational speaker, motivational coach, motivational development figure. And therefore, Julie and I thought it would be good to have him on the show because a lot of what he does, and he can tell us about that when he comes in, is to help people get more motivated for work and career, things that you and I, Julie, are focusing on all the time. I know. Let me just say that I've spent a lot of hours with you, Julie, when you're coming out of meetings with clients that you're trying to motivate for their career. And, you have to have a shoulder to put your head on, and I'm there for you. And I know you do such hard work and such fine work with people, helping them be motivated and succeed in their careers. So this should be fun for both of us. So we're going to have Jarvis come in and join us in the show.
Hey everybody, Julie LaCroix here from the Career Lab podcast. Just want to give a shout out to Douceur Global Education. Douceur.education is the website. If you're looking for an easy access, low price online solution to getting an MBA, Douceur Global is your place to go. They offer amazing faculty, incredible speakers, customized education to your line of work. And do you need a bachelor's degree? You don't. If you have 5 years of management experience or equivalent, and you're looking to advance your career, maybe move out of a family business, move into a different company in your current industry where they're looking for some additional training, or you just want to be promoted and get some professional development, please reach out to Douceur Global. It's douceur.education. They have the solution for you. It's a wonderful intersection between professional mobility and academic pathway, academic progression. Douceur Global Education.
And we are happy to welcome our special guest to this episode of Career Lab, Jarvis Leverson. And Jarvis, I've introduced you when you were off camera. So welcome, and we're happy to have you.
Thank you. I'm excited.
You're kind of an unusual guest because you kind of fit into your own slot. You're not really our prototypical guest, but after I've met you and gotten to know you, I thought you'd be a really good fit for the show, and Julie agreed with me. So,
oh boy, I hope I don't disappoint.
Us too, absolutely. There's no disappointment on Career Lab. You remember the old line, There's no crying in baseball. Well, there's no disappointment on Career Lab.
That's right. Mistakes are professional development plans, right?
There we go.
Oh, that's what I'm trying to convince my wife of. I wasn't a mistake. Marrying me wasn't a mistake. It's just your professional development plan.
There we go. Well, Julie and I are going to interview you and talk a little bit, but I've described you as a motivational speaker, a coach, a development a counselor. What would you tell us about what you actually do?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm still trying to figure that out. No, but I spent 15 years of my life in sales. I did tech sales. I was a software sales rep for 15 years, and I accumulated a lot of success there. President's Club, was number one sales rep in my company. My story begins at the end of that chapter of my life. I sort of hit a brick wall and burnt out. I didn't know what was going on. I just knew I wasn't happy. And if you looked on the outside, it looked like I had everything going for me. I had a beautiful girlfriend at the time. We were living in a penthouse in downtown San Diego overlooking the water. So we had a 280 view from, floor to ceiling window view of the ocean on one side and the downtown skyline on the other side. We had all the cars and the friends. Looking on the outside of our life, it looked like everything was great. On the inside, I didn't know what was going on, but I just didn't feel fulfilled. I just felt like, just another day in the rat race. It's just like the same cycle over and over and over again. And I don't know if it was, you hit, plateau where I felt like I went through a growth spurt in my career and the phase of my life. And then things just kind of fizzled and just was blah. And I was just kind of going through the motions. And then the way that materialized for me was I started to develop self-sabotaging habits. And I started to self-destruct. So I started trying to fill that void with vices, going out and partying, going out and drinking, living weekend to weekend, looking for good times, looking for some excitement. It's like my life wasn't exciting enough, so I had to go try to fill it with these things. And that started this downward spiral. So I went from looking like everything was going great with my life to all of a sudden, what's going on with Jarvis? And it was just this desperate attempt of grasping for fulfillment. Unfortunately, I was fulfilling it with the wrong things and the wrong people in the wrong places. And it led to me getting let go from my job, me getting let go from my relationship, into where I was, as I call it, semi-homeless, walking the streets of San Diego, bouncing around from friend to friend house, sleeping on the floor and sleeping on their couch, until I wore out my welcome and I would go on to the next friend's house. And eventually I had to move back in with my mother at 35 years old. I had to do a complete life reset and move back in, and I lived in her basement while I tried to figure out the next phase of my life. So wow. It truly is like this story of this. I went from hero to zero, right? I'm in one month. I've got it all. Literally within the very next month, I'm homeless. I'm living in my mom's basement, trying to figure out what's the next step for myself.
That is a burnout. That is just self-sabotage from a burnout to an nth degree, for sure.
100%. And it was, and it was the best thing that could have happened to me. And my wife talk about this. So that woman that broke up with me, but she's my wife now. But
lucky guy.
I'm wondering, Jarvis, if you have anything you want to say about, other than the behavioral factors, that led to this really kind of massive decline. Was there anything else you either know now or have thought about that, that might be useful to others to understand what caused you to fall so far so fast?
I've done a lot of reflection on this because I'm writing a book right now. And so this is a big part of my book, like really reconstructing or deconstructing what I went through to help other people who are going through it or potentially could be going through it. And I use the analogy of a joy tank. And so, my brand now is called The Morning Hero. So I show people how to masterfully win their mornings so that they can master and win the rest of their life and produce everything they were designed to produce in life. And the way I discovered the power of the mornings was on my mom's couch. And I read this book called The Miracle Morning, which really amplified the power and importance of waking up to a strong morning practice that then sets the tone for the rest of the day. And so that's how I got into waking up early. And now I've kind of built my whole brand and I help people with this process. We have a whole online community of people that get up early and we have a morning mastermind. So a lot of things I do now is all centered around the morning. Now, when I was there on my mom's couch, I kind of had a lot of reflection time to figure out what happened and why this morning thing seemed to fix it. And I looked at it like, I call it this, in the book, I use this analogy of a joy tank. When I was going through the motions, kind of in my burnout phase, I would get up and I would just go. And then I noticed that by the time halfway through the day, you're dealing with the stress of the day and you've got the whirlwind coming at you and you're just dealing with the heaviness of everything, the everyday life. By the end of the day, I felt like, the day has robbed me. Now it's time for me. I need to reward myself. I deserve a break. I deserve a drink. I deserve this. Like I was grasping at things because I was my joy tank was operating at the negative. And so the day had robbed me of all the joy. And now I need to a quick fix of joy, whether it's going to have a drink or mind numbing substances or anything I need to quickly I need to do something to feel like I have control again.
So
Now,
let me jump in here if I just can. That's a very important point you're making. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but want to share with our listeners. So that's actually a problem for a lot of people. A lot of folks work very hard during the day. And then when they finish work, they feel like they're entitled to, have some, which they certainly are, time for themselves. In your case, the way you chose to spend it wasn't productive. But that's not really my point. My point for our listeners is that part of your problem was you didn't put any enjoyment and satisfaction and other kinds of things into your daily experience. It was full on work. And 100%. You didn't have that balance.
And that's where the morning came in. And so now looking back, now that I know that my life is completely different and I'm reflecting what's different now versus then, the difference was back then I ended the day with myself trying to fill my joy tank, trying to fill an empty joy tank. The day robbed me. Imagine you wake up, let's just go through this mental exercise. You wake up and your joy tank is at a 50% level. Every day you wake up, your joy tank is at 50%. The moment you start doing stuff, everything chips away at your joy. An email comes in, an angry client you got to deal with. Your mom calls and she adds a little stress to you. The kids have unreasonable requests. All the stresses of the day, gradually your joy tank is being chipped away at. Halfway through the day, your joy tank is at zero, right? It's a lot. Most of the time you end the day in the negatives. And now you got to quickly fill it back up. Now, once I started getting into this morning thing, what I realized, I wake up in the morning now, my joy tank is still at 50, but instead of diving right into the day, I first take that first hour, maybe even 2 hours, and I do things for myself. I get some exercise. I meditate. I pray. I journal my goals and plan my day. I reconnect to the things that's important to me. I call someone that I love. By the time I finish, I call it my power hour. The first hour of the day is no social media. It's no email. It's nothing where anyone else can touch me. It's I am alone, undistracted alone time. That's my power hour. And what I notice now is that power hour takes my joy tank from 50 to 100. So now I'm starting the day at a full tank. So I'm not depleted at the end of the day. Essentially what I is I start the day filling my tank instead of trying to end the day desperately filling my tank with quick fixes of joy that really are nothing but self-sabotaging habits. This concept of moving my me time from the end of the day to the beginning of the day drastically changes how I operate all day, and it drastically changes what I do at the end of my day. That's where the self-sabotage came before.
Let us jump in here and chat with you a little bit about it, Julie. I know you have some things you'd like to ask Jarvis.
Well, and again, interpret Jarvis's really simple and clear explanation for how to make a very important but small but life-changing shift. So what happens is that in adult development, we have something that is often called in the field of psychology role conflict, where we have multiple roles that we play. We have to be a worker. We have to be a parent. We have to be a spouse. We have to be a member of the community. Perhaps we're a churchgoer. Perhaps we're a friend. We have all these different roles that take up our time and our energy. And you had given so much of yourself to work that you were depleted in the other roles. And your coping strategy for that being in the evenings and self-sabotaging was miraculously and brilliantly, it has been replaced with a positive coping strategy, a healthy way to respond to preventing that negative byproduct of role conflict to a healthier behavior. And so that, for the listeners, that's what's happening, because a lot of people who are listening in have role conflict where they have all these different competing things and one area is sucking so much out of the rest of it. And then how do you refill that cup and this and that? And it's very confusing and convoluted and complex and disorienting, especially when those roles are acute and I call it the mid-30s crunch. And I love the simplicity and the impact. What a high impact maneuver Love that. So that's my interpretation of that.
Julie, you are so eloquent. I need to just take you around with me so that you can interpret everything I say.
That's a wonderful idea. I think we'd all like to do that. I'd like to have Julie on my shoulder 24/7. My comment about what we're talking about now, Jarvis, really, and one of the reasons I wanted you on the show is because I feel like the point I really want to focus on for just a minute is when you were at your lowest, because I think a lot of people get there. I think for a lot of different reasons, people end up at a really low place. And what happens there, I mean, you have a very wonderful story and you have a very specific thing you were able to pull from to help you. But I think the question for most people, where do you get the resources to get off the mat? This is really hard for people. When you're down and you're on the mat, where do you find the resources? Now, your story is particularly appealing because you did in your morning routine and your morning hero, in those kinds of things, found the resources. For many others, that's not what they're going to find. They're going to find something else. Yeah. But what the point I'm trying to make for our listeners is that when you're on the mat, there are resources, internal resources, not money or other things, but internal resources you can use to help yourself get up. That's the whole point of your story, really, is that you were able to find internal resources. Nobody gave you a lot of money. Nothing happened there. You found an internal resource, in this case, a unique one, your own, calling the morning your new time and recalibrating the way you organize your day and your life. But so many people get to that point of being very down. And what I think Julie and I want to say to our listeners is there are internal resources you can call on. Everybody has strengths inside them that they can pull from to get off the mat when you find yourself on it. I've been on the mat. Yeah, I think everybody has been.
And I want to just add to that. I think we do put too much ownership, too much credit. Like, I have to do this. I got to get the power. I got to figure this out. I disagree with that. I think it comes from, you draw from other people. Community is how I tapped into that. The very first thing I started doing was I started going to a morning spin class where there was community. There were other people. There was energy I can draw from. That was the thing. It wasn't this intrinsic, how do I light my own fire? I had to just get enough to get into a room with other people who then fanned my flame. I think anybody who's in that place or in a dark place, you have to get yourself out there. Get enough energy to get into a room where there are other people that can fan the flame. Now, granted, you do have to have a little bit of a spark. You can't just be a void of anything. People can't light your own flame. So I would say that's the part that is internal. You do have to have a little bit of an internal flame first. Maybe reading books, listening to podcasts, which again is outside influences, right? Again, it all comes from the outside in. But once you have that little flame, do as best you can to get out of your world and get into a room where there's other people that can fan it for you. The biggest thing for me was I found meetup.com and I started going to meetups to be around other like-minded people. That was the number one thing that got me from there to here, was getting around other people and being influenced by them.
No question that support systems and getting the energy and support and help that being in the community gives you is a very critical point. So I'm glad you brought that up. Julie, want to add something about that? I know you do.
Yeah. So in the field of career psychology, there's a peer-reviewed published theory that is incredibly important for people who are at certain stages of career. And it's based on a social learning theory in the field of psychology. But the theory is actually called, I believe technically it's called the theory of happenstance. And essentially, it sounds easy, but it's not. It's very calculated. And you intentionally walked yourself into this, which is probably exactly what Joel or I would have recognized you needed to do. First of all, for the listeners, if you're finding yourself at a place of, despair and lack of intrinsic motivation, and you're at a standing start, walk before you run. Walk to that one spin class where you think there might be community for you. Because in the theory that I referenced, the key to it is proximity. And what you were able to do through divine intervention, intentionality, or just plain luck, is create a space where you were able to connect in close proximity with what would become a support system. And if you can calibrate where you're going to put that first step, if you're really into video gaming and Dungeons and Dragons, don't go to spin class. Go to a live Dungeons and Dragons place. Start vibing with your people. Find your people. And even if it means you just go once or twice, the likelihood of you creating that connection and leave wanting more is so much exponentially higher. So I'm really excited that you're kind of peeling back the onion and kind of letting us look and see what your actions were that got you out of the funk, because getting out of a funk is hard, but it's actually, there's a specific strategy for it because it's part of career maneuvering. It's part of career mobility. So
absolutely.
Tell us more.
Yeah, and I think I'm glad I'm excited for this conversation, because you just add all the theory to the stuff that I've has just been my lived life experience, and so now you kind of validate me with all the theory and the research. So I appreciate you. Thank you for that.
Sure. Well, the way that you got to your place of despair, as Joel called it, and the way that you got out of it are real life experiences. And those real life experiences provide the content for academia to study. And so when we study it and analyze it and report on it, it gives some foundation and structure and pathway and solution making for real problems. And that's the fun part of where academics and the real world come together right there.
I'm so glad you said that, Julie, because you're so right about that. Another aspect of what is happening and happened to you that I wanted to make sure our listeners got, because I think this is a real problem for many people. You can't go from 0 to 100 in one day.
No.
And you're a demonstration of that. When you were on the mat, you found external, internal, a variety of things, and you started getting yourself back together. In psychotherapy, I was a psychotherapist for many years. So what we always worked on with folks was we knew where they wanted to go, but they had to take certain steps to get there. And many people have a hard time with that. They see the goal out there. They want to try to get there right away. They don't. They fail, and then they're back at square one. You, Jarvis, began to do the things you did. And as you grew and expanded the range of what the Morning Hero meant to you, it eventually became a whole life for you. So you took it in a step-like fashion. And I really want to say to our listeners, and I know Julie and I are big supporters of this, when you are going through this kind of a change, especially if it is specifically a career burnout, you've got to begin to take one step at a time to get back to where you eventually will be. And you're just a real high-level example of that, Jarvis.
Thank you. Thank you, Joel. Julie, you're going to say something?
Yes. So what happened here is a very, very common career problem. You lost your career identity, and then you rebuilt one that looked totally different than technology sales. And in that journey of rebuilding your own life, you constructed a new career identity that was more in alignment with who you were at that stage of your life, because you didn't want to bring the career identity of being Jarvis, the President's Club top salesperson in the big fancy company, into the next chapter. You wanted to be somebody else, and you were willing to lose everything to figure out what that meant. And that is a career identity deconstruction and reconstruction project in like perfection, actually, if you think about it. So I love that you have this career identity of executive coach, motivational speaker, but it's the morning piece of it that has been such a solution for you and becomes the platform for you to impact other people's lives in a new way, because obviously impacting people's lives in sales was very important to you. So it's really an exciting example of career identity deconstruction and reconstruction. I get really excited about that stuff. I hope our listeners are doing backflips, because a lot of times people are on a track that's good enough, but if they and they identify as that type of worker, but if they really did the work with Joel or me or broke down with a career counselor who knew what they were really doing, you would see that the career identity is just a little bit off. And if you get rid of this 25% and add on this 25%, it moves this way and actually is much more proper alignment with our inner purpose and our inner gifts and talents and aptitudes and strengths. And the vision becomes much more clear. Whereas you were looking this way, so you couldn't see it. It was in your peripheral. And the fact that you were able to maneuver that career identity through baby steps of walking before you ran, and step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and next thing you know, boom, you've got that straight line, and you identify with it, which is the key to feeling that you are pursuing meaningful and sustainable work.
Well, Julie, not only that, but I mean, I think what you just said is so important. And let me try to summarize it. It's very hard to become your best self. It's very hard to become the person in terms of a career you really want to be. And Jarvis, that's the road you're on now. And even though you were successful in your other career, it really didn't mean anywhere as much as what you're doing now. The way you're impacting not only the lives of others, but the enjoyment, satisfaction you're developing in your own life. So this is a moment for you that is really special. And I'm really glad that you could share it with us and allow us to chat with you about it.
Now, we've broken down the process of how you got there so much because Joel and I will geek out on this for hours. Like he and I will probably sit on the phone tonight and have a glass of wine and chit chat about all the neat little theoretical things that are coming out of this and that. Yeah. But I know that the show is going to come to a close here soon. I want to know about your morning routine. Give us the breakdown here.
Yes, I'll kind of walk you guys through from a mom's couch to where we are now. But just to kind of reclarify what you just talked about, Julie, I think that's the most powerful piece. What you just said is I call it congruence. The angst that I felt was that I wasn't in congruence. And congruence is what you are doing in the direction you're in right now is in total alignment with your grand purpose and design, right? It's being rooted in your purpose and actively every day knowing that you are making progress to being what you were called to be. The reason you were placed on his earth, you are fulfilling that mission. That's congruence. And when you're out of that alignment, when you're not in congruence, then all these little surface level things that you probably can't even explain, you don't even know why you're anxious, you don't know why you're unhappy. I got everything in the world. Why do I feel angry? Why am I, why do I have tension? Why am I edgy with people? I don't know what's going on. You don't even know. It's deeply rooted in the fact that you don't feel congruent. You don't feel like you're in alignment with your mission and purpose, or you don't even know what your purpose is. And that's where even though I was successful in sales, that's not why I was placed here on this earth. Now I know why I'm placed here on this earth. And every day I'm striving in that direction. Now I have complete fulfillment. Now I am joyful. Now I walk into every room with doing backflips with exuberance. And now I want everyone to have that feeling. And how do you get there? That's the grand question. You don't just wake up.
That's what we do. That's what we do every day. That's our job, is to get people there. Let me just tell you, Jarvis, there's so many ways that you can define what is career. I mean, really think about it. That's a hard question. That's like saying, what is God? Or, what is the universe? It's hard to define what is career. But one of my favorite definitions for it, and I'm going to tell you this because I think this is going to hit you perfectly, is that career is the outward expression of who we are on the inside. And,
beautiful.
And
very
you have
well
found
said,
it.
and incredibly well said. Julie, did you just come up with that?
No, that's career theory.
Okay. Well, I think we have to kind of wind down. So I knew this would be an extremely vital and wonderful talk. And I want to, give a lot of appreciation to you, Jarvis, for being willing to come on the show as a guest and share the dynamic, incredible personal story you have. You and I have developed a professional relationship, and I know that's going to go on. We share a lot in common. And Julia, I'm always amazed at how astute you are and how much of value and brilliance your comments bring. All I can do is say another big win for you, Julie, in that column. So
my job.
We have to wrap up now, unfortunately, because of time. But Jarvis, we want to thank you so much for being our special guest.
I do want to just answer Julie's last question as well.
Sure.
What is the morning thing, or
let's have it.
What's the grand takeaway someone can take from this? I'll say to from our last point where we were just talking about congruence, right? How do you know if you're living in your purpose? How do you find the clarity? How do you have a practice of clarity every day to know that you are moving in your grand design? That is your morning. I call it the power hour. If anyone doesn't take anything else from this one thing they should take is that every morning, start the day with yourself, undistracted alone time, at least an hour. So I have children. My kids wake up at 5:30. Guess what that means? That means I have to be up by 4:30 at the latest. So I can have one undistracted hour of alone time. And in that alone time, I have prayer. I ask for guidance. I'm listening for what the answers and the guidance that the universe is telling me. I do some exercise. I'm journaling and writing my goals and setting my intentions for the day. In that hour, I get the clarity, I get the guidance, I get the next steps, I get the things I need to focus on, I get to plan it out in my day. That hour, I leave from that hour going 1,000 miles an hour because I've had time to get in congruence. If anyone is struggling right now, it's because of this. They're not in congruence and they know it. How do you get in congruence? You need undistracted alone time every day. If you just get up and go, that's how you find yourself in the hamster wheel, because all you're doing is getting up and running every day. You don't have time to stop and say, wait a minute, am I running in the right direction? Am I running in the right direction is the most powerful question you can ever find an answer to in your life. And here's the thing, you will not generate that answer. It comes from an outside source in. You have to have space and time to allow that outside source to speak to you. That's in your power hour every day. Wake up 1 hour earlier every day. Spend that time with yourself, getting the answers you need to get to where you're designed to be in your life. And if you need help with that, go to themorninghero.com. I have a ton of free resources to help you wake up earlier and how do you design your power hour so you can be who you were called to be.
I'm going to do that.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to that link.
Well, good. I encourage all our listeners to do that. And it's really been a great pleasure having you on the show. Thanks so much for coming on. Thanks, Jarvis. We'll let you go. And we hope to see you back on Career Lab.
Thank you. It's awesome.
Thank you, Jarvis.
Thank you, Julie.
Well, Julie, that was a very interesting episode. And I'm really glad we had Jarvis as a guest.
So much to analyze there. Wow. How forthcoming of him and vulnerable for him to be able to talk about that pain and the word you use, despair. That is despair. There's so much in his puzzle that you can analyze retrospectively on how he got there, what it was like in that moment, and how he walked himself out of it, and how he's thriving now. What a reversal.
Yeah. The reason I wanted to have him on is you don't often get that big a high-low guest, the way he has gotten. So I thought that would be good. I did want to say, Julie, that you really brought up some very, I was really impressed, some surprisingly accurate and appropriate academic theory, both from social psychology and otherwise, into that discussion that really made the discussion much more intense intellectually, and I want to applaud you for that. I guess that's why you're America's career coach, huh?
Kind of a nerd.
Wow, I guess so. So
you know what I say, Joel? I might look like Daphne, but I'm Velma.
There you go. There you go. So it's been a great opportunity to meet with him, and it's been a fun episode. And we, for all our listeners, again, if you find us on Apple Podcasts, please like us, follow the show. We are on our 7th season of Career Lab. So a lot of people ask me about that because they have a hard time kind of believing that. We were podcasting and on this show really before it became everybody's radio. So go to Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your shows and check out some of the incredible guests, the incredible stories, and the incredible growth that Julie and I have shared on the show. We're really happy that you could all be with us this morning. And we'll be back soon with our next episode. So hang tight, Julie. Take care of yourself. Stay young, stay beautiful, and we'll see you all soon.
Good to see you, Joel.
Bye-bye.